used to describe some values. And why are we using these variables? Remember, variable means names. And why are we using these names? These names are used to get the value which I stored in the memory, or set the value which I stored in the memory. Now, the reasons behind these names, why we need these names actually. Now, the data that you're going to work with in your computer, remember, it will be stored in the memory, or what we call the RAM. We are going to store some data in memory, or what we call the RAM. We are going to store this data in the RAM. Now, let's say I store some value, let's say 25 will be stored in the memory. I store this number value 25 in memory as 25. Now, assume this is one person age. Age is 25. Now, I am going to save this value 25 in the memory. Now, once you store this value in the memory, remember this memory access is done by using the memory address. Each location in the memory is identified by memory address. So, then this location has a memory address. This location has a memory address. If it is a 32-bit system, this address has 32 bits. This address has 32 bits. So then if the person is going to get some data from the memory, then he must know this memory address. So that means he has to record memory address. So he must remember the memory address. But remember, working in the memory address is very complicated. We will forget the addresses in general. That is why in your mobile phone, all the telephone numbers you are saved by names, not by numbers. Sometimes your telephone phone may have thousands of contacts, but you can't remember all these thousands of contact numbers. That is why you save all these by names, because we forget the numbers, but we can remember their names. When I want to call someone, so probably I don't know what is a phone number, I can't remember. So what I will do is, I know that person number, names. So then I just search the phone and find the name, and then actually we can call the person. But actually when you are calling, it is not connected by using the names. Actual communication is done by the numbers. But the problem is people cannot remember the numbers, people will forget. Therefore, to make it easier, always you are using the names than the numbers. Same thing happens here. So in the memory we are going to store some values, but these values can be accessed using the memory address. But people are not willing to remember the address because they are very large complex addresses. Therefore, instead what we are going to do is we are going to use the names. These names that are using, we call them as variables, or sometimes these variables are called as identifiers also. Identifiers. We call them as variables, or we call them as identifiers. Why we call them as identifiers? We call them as identifiers because we are using this to identify the memory. Now once I save this value 25, I can define a variable as age. Now this age is what? Name, or that's a variable, or that's an identifier. Then by using this word age, I can get this value from the memory. Therefore, this age name is called as identifier, because I using that one is to identify the memory locations. And the value in this memory can be changed. Later you can put 35, or different value can be placed. Therefore, this identifier is called as a variable also, because value is varying time to time. It is not fixed. It is changing the value in the memory. Since they are changing, we call them as a variable. and this one is used to identify the memory, therefore we call them as identifiers. So then basically variables or identifiers are the names. Why are we using this? To get the value from the memory or to identify the memory locations, and from there you can get the corresponding values. So those are we call as variables or identifiers. And then remember the other one here is that in PHP when you are creating the variables, you have to use the dollar sign like this. So every variable is start by dollar sign. You have to start by the dollar sign every variables. When you have dollar sign, you must understand it's a variable. So then if something is start by dollar sign, it's a variable or identifier. And remember, the variable names should be started by A to Z capital or it is simple, or underscore also possible. That means if I want to have a variable, let's say age, you can write the age. The word age can be used. Or you can use a capital H, don't matter. But remember, this is case sensitive. So in this case, they are not same. This is two different variables. So you have to use a dollar sign to indicate the variables. Remember, they are case sensitive. Capital symbols are not same. They are different. But in PHP, as I told you earlier, PHP functions or keywords, if then else, echo, print like functions are case insensitive. It doesn't matter use a capital or simple. But in here you need to remember, in variables, capital symbols are matters. If you write a capital H and simple H, they are two different things. They are not equal. So then the first letter of the variable should be a capital or simple letter. So underscore is possible. That means you can create the variable like this, dollar underscore age. The first letter can be a character, or first letter can be a underscore. So like this you can create using the underscore. That's possible. Normally variables cannot start by number. First letter can't be a number. First letter cannot be a number. So then variable can use A to Z capital or simple 0 to 9 digits underscore, but other special characters cannot be used like hash, less than, greater than symbols, at sign, like other special characters cannot be used for the variable names. Now here is an example how to create a variables. Now here I have created the two variables, and then one is an integer, other one is a string. So then just print those. When you print, you will get the output like this. Since the line break is not used, everything comes in the single line. So for the functions, either capital and simple can be used, and parentheses also can be used, or you can ignore. That is how you can print the values. Now this is what I told you. Having single and double quotations are matter in the variables. Now you can see here I have variable name as a name. There's a variable. Now here I am printing I am, and this is a variable name, so I'm writing these variable names here, $name. So then you can see the output would be like this: I am, and my name will be printed. But the second one, I'm using single quotations. In the using single quotation, remember the value of the variable will not be printed. It print as it is $name. So that is the difference between double quotation and single quotation. Now we'll take some example. Now here, so I create some variables. I create some variable and save some values. Save some values. Now I have the two variables. One is a name, other one is a class. There are two variables. Now, if I want to print this, I can use a print. Then I can print here $name. Then I will line break. Then again I write $. So one variable is enough. You can see first two are printing my name, but third one is printed as the $name. Why is that? The reason here, if you just write the $name, that value will be printed. And here also double quotation will print the value. But remember, when it's a single quotation, it prints the character as it is, not the value of the variable.